So we're thinking now about this communion, this fellowship that we're invited to be a part of with the Trinity. And there's this fellow, Nicholas Herman, many centuries ago, who had some difficult experiences with the military and professionally, and ended up going into an order and became known as Lawrence of the Resurrection, Brother Lawrence, and wrote in such a winsome way about this notion to practice the presence, that the presence is possible, but also that it's something that we can practice. And I remember I grew up in a Protestant Baptist tradition, and probably two of the earlier works from outside the tradition that I read when I was pretty young were The Imitation of Christ and Practicing the Presence. And I actually found the imitation kind of forbidding. It was a little, felt severe. I was immediately drawn to Brother Lawrence. He just felt like there was such a humility and an openness and I'm making my little omelet, and if I have nothing else to do, I just flop down on the ground and enjoy that God is here, and I'm not worried about how well I do at it. And that for the first 4 years when he was in the order, when he went in, he was convinced he was damned. And had not much relief from that after 4 years, but found practicing the presence of God brought such joy to him. It's not even that he felt resolution around that. He just stopped worrying about heaven and hell, because the joy of practicing that presence, of being in the actual presence of God, was such a powerful thing.
Yes.
Yeah, and I found myself just drawn into that. I want. There are aspects of what I think the faith might involve that I have to work to want. That I want.
And he was very attractive to me too. He called himself the Lord of all pots and pans. And I thought, I used to wash dishes in a restaurant. And I thought, that's something I could do. He also mentioned that it took him 10 years to come into that sense of the practice of the presence of God, to be as much in the presence of God while he's washing pots and pans as if he were at the Holy Eucharist. Amazing.
Well, and I thought he's such a great picture of the hiddenness of the kingdom. That, he didn't write a book while he was alive. He would counsel people or sometimes write spiritual letters. And it wasn't until after he was dead that it got compiled. So if you had been around in that day, whoever the head of his order was, whoever the Pope was, they would be quite famous. Nobody knows this little guy in the kitchen. And here all these centuries later, either of you know who was Pope when he was working? I don't know. How would we have known that where the grace of God was going to be poured out in ways that would be blessing people centuries later, wasn't at this level on the org chart, it wasn't here in the org chart, it's this little guy, and who knows at what church right now, there are popes, bishops, mega churches, but there's somebody peeling potatoes in a kitchen someplace, and 4 centuries from now, that's the person through whom the Trinity will have worked.
I think that's where the word intimacy comes in. This man was intimate with God. And how was he intimate with God? He shared God's life right where he was. And he did that by not allowing what he was doing to stand over against being with God. And the intimacy with God is what makes a person a source of light and power. Jesus said, anyone who believes on me, from his belly, which I'm glad he didn't say his mouth, but from his belly shall flow rivers of living water. And this brother is so illustrative of that. Actually, Kempis was too, in a different way. But this person is so good in helping ordinary people have hope about their lives.
I wanted to ask you about part of your teaching around this subject. You talked about how intimacy is built on shared experiences. And persons are made up by experiences.
That's right.
Say a word about what is an experience. How should we understand that word?
Good question.
Well, an experience is a conscious event that becomes a part of your life. You live through experiences. They make up your life, and since they are shareable, they provide a basis for our lives being shared and us being intimate with one another.
So we're looking out on a mountain right now in Colorado. That's an experience.
That's an experience. It's very interesting, you know, how we want others to look at it with us.
Yeah. Look. Yeah.
And
Well, if you're watching, you can't look right now, but we're looking at it. It's beautiful.
One of the things I love about Brother Lawrence in this regard is how work was not an obstacle, but an avenue. I remember when I was, you know, in pastoral work, and one of my tasks was visiting the sick in the hospitals. And I was trying to learn how to pray. And I remember one time I'm rushing off to the hospital, and I'm going, if I just didn't have to make all these hospital calls, I could learn how to pray. Until it dawned on me,
Darn sick people keep giving away.
this is where I'm to learn. Yeah. And if I'm to pray for people, that's how I learn how to pray.
absolutely. And of course, the inclusion of you and me and you and others in the Trinitarian fellowship is primarily a matter of bringing our work with us and expecting what we are doing to be a manifestation of the presence of God in our lives. And as we do that, then we begin to build a substance in our experience that is nourishing to everyone we come in contact with. And that's old Brother Lawrence here. I mean, he's still just feeding people by the hundreds.
The amazing thing is, you know, we build a history with God through those experiences.
It's a wonderful phrase. We build a history with God.
Yeah. And it isn't any place else.
And it's nobody else's.
And
I
it's
mean, it
right.
enriches other people, you know,
Right,
as
right.
as that happens in you, it changes you, and I get enriched by that. But that's something that you and God have that's, you know, private and precious, and anybody can have, and that's what makes our lives bigger than our work or our reputation or our success or our bank account.
Yes, and our spiritual substance turns out to be the greatest substance, greater than anything in the world apart from us.
Now, you have to unpack that for me a little.
Well, substance.
And you have 30 seconds to do it.
Okay. Substance is a biblical term, actually, and it refers to the underlying reality that holds everything else up. And in our lives, it isn't the physical side, it's the spiritual side that holds everything else up. And that's where eternal life and eternal living comes in, because God moves in there with us. And as Jesus said, if you do what I say, you keep my commandments, I and my Father will come and move in with you.
It's a wonderful place to stop. Thank you.